Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. I am Clementine, and as always, I am Super Saiyan. But never mind that. In this video, customer states my partscaster telly is all screwed up. The only repair instructions given, fix it. So, we're gonna clean it up, rip it open, do some pickup mods, Clementine style of course, do some rubbing, some banging, some painting, and some screwing. Throw a full setup on this baby, string up some pedals, and then rip it through some hot tubes. I'm gonna go ahead and do a spoiler alert right now. This ended up being about maybe the twangiest Telecaster on the planet Earth. If this sounds like something you might be interested in, stay tuned!
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
So, this is some type of Telecaster style guitar of unknown make and model. The girl who owns it says that her grandfather built it out of spare parts. I can concur, it appears to be a hodgepodge of manufacturers. It's a strange yellow, gray, green, beige that I've only seen on Harmony guitars before. It has an ill-fitting neck that says Magnum on the headstock. And the neck plate is from a first act. I was told it won't stay in tune, it buzzes, the intonation is way off, and it generally has never sounded right. Let's get it on the workbench, inspect it in detail. Several things instantly become very apparent to me. One being those colored ball ends on the strings there. Another being the level of dust and nicotine on this guitar makes it look as if it has been stored in a barn since the Crusades. This guitar has a signature from a Charlie something that I don't know, who I assume to be a famous person. And lastly, that neck does appear to be lined up good, but it doesn't even close to fit, and that will need a shim. This headstock says Magnum. I've never heard of a Magnum, unless you're talking about those small foil packages that I've used for over 2 decades to try to prevent pregnancy. This is somewhat of a unique and interesting neck, as you'll see later in the video. As I stated previously, this has a first act neck plate, so the body may be first act, but this is a strange and unique color, and I've had a Harmony guitar identical to this. You can see here, it's just a weird mustardy beige color. So we can see from this configuration of screws that this does in fact have a Telecaster style pickup, and up at the neck, I think that's probably just a Strat copy. I am hoping I don't have to rip into these electronics because the rest of this guitar is in bad enough condition already. That pickup is weak as shit. She could use an old magnet. This pickup rock. Looks like we'll be opening her up anyway. Shit.
That's it, Lord. Just dump it right down here on old Royd. I can take it.
Don't try this at home. I'm consummately non-professional. So most obviously to me, this is the problem with that buzzing and those tuning issues. Check this out. The hole for the string is back here, but these good Diodario strings, I can tell they're Diodarios because they got the colored balls in the wrong damn place. This had the string, like the wound part was in front of the tuner. Nothing against nobody that did this, it's just not how it's done. Whoever did it, they obviously knew how to put a guitar together, but this hardtail bridge, if you're used to dealing with a Strat, you think they need to come up from the bottom, but with a hardtail telly bridge or a Strat bridge, which this is, needs to come up from here. That could be another reason why this pickup seemed weak to me. Also, it's decked. We'll bring it up. I'll probably put an EO magnet in this, and they'll have a badass rock and roll guitar that can do all the country twangy shit that it should be able to do. Clementine secret cleaning fluid. Yeah. Clean this bitch. Nicotine. Nicotine and hairs. Your guitar was all covered with hairs. I seen them scooting around on there. I'll be a son of a gun. Bet you thought I was gonna say son of a bitch, didn't you? Golly, man. This son of a bitch is bad. It ain't coming clean. It's just getting some kind of finger grease. Y'all ever heard of that? That's a scientific term there. Finger grease. Wiping off that finger grease. I tell you what, Clem, that there was covered in finger grease. That's like ambergris. Who can tell me what ambergris is in the comments down below?
Well fat.
It ain't well fat. It comes from a well, but it ain't fat.
They use it in perfume.
It's well vomit. I done gave it away to you folks. And the gal, the pretty gal, she talked.
I forgot you was recording.
Ha ha! Got you.
Yeah, you missed me.
I got you again.
Mhm.
Woo, got you again.
Yeah, then I robbed the bank, then I got you again.
Then I went and hid it out in the woods. Then I came back to the bank and then I robbed it again and got you again.
Yeah.
Woo, got you again. Well, I'm gonna have to polish that shit again later, but at least I got all of this off. Let's compare this here. Ew.
Ew.
I'm gonna take this wet rag here to the neck. But won't the frets pop out? No. Unlike you, this guitar ain't a pussy. Do you melt in the rain? I ain't saying put your guitar in the rain. Disclaimer. Pew. Clementine does not condone putting your guitar in the rain. Let's clean the back of it and I'll be back with you. As I got this here neck clean, I noticed something quite surprising about it. This ain't maple, or I don't think it is. I'm looking at the grain. Don't pay attention to the color, pay attention to the grain. See, especially right here. And now look at these lines on the neck. This here sumbitch looks to be pine. Nothing wrong with that. Bill Kirchin's entire Telecaster is pine. People think that's cool nowadays, but it might be a bitch to get it all lined up and working right in a good old straight fashion. Yeah, I didn't pick up on it, but all these gashes, this knot hole here, the fact that I could dent this with my fingernail, that just might be indications there. I flip it over. This ain't a two-piece neck, this is one piece. That there looks like maple all day long. So, I don't really know for sure. We'll call it mystery wood and we'll act like it's maple for my sanity. But I'll tell you one thing. There ain't no truss rod adjustment down here. No truss rod adjustment. Where's the truss rod adjustment? It ain't there. Shakily fied. Open this bitch up. Well, fuck a duck, screw a kangaroo, bang an orangutan, orgy at the zoo. Oh, look at that. She's changed colors over the years. Nicotine. Here, some of bitch could have 2 deep humbuckers in it. But that ain't what we're doing. South in the front, north in the back. Should I flip that? Put this thing having an awesome out of phase sound? Maybe I should. Out of phase telly is pretty damn sweet for that country sound. Let's see. Well, fellas, if you still here, then you know a little bit more about who I really am and why I often take the time to do voiceover instead of using the audio from the live mic that was in the room. I tried to get this magnet off of here, and if you watch my channel, you've seen me remove these magnets over and over again. This one would not come off for love nor money. In fact, it started to crumble and bust into pieces. Once a little tiny chip come off the end, I stopped. And then I thought about a video that I saw a couple years ago where they took Jimmy Page's Dragon Telecaster apart because they're going to make a replica. On the back of the bridge pickup was all kinds of refrigerator magnets stuck to it, like 3 big ones, and this was normally an Alnico pole pickup, and I'm just betting that's why so many people thought that was a Les Paul on those first recordings. Things sound like a chainsaw. So I took me some super glue, put on the back of this ceramic magnet, slapped the N94 neodymium magnet on there, and you will hear in the sound demo at the end, this did something crazy. I thought I knowed what a twang was, but I was wrong. Now it's time to start addressing these frets. I'm using a small piece of laser cut plywood to either determine if we have any high or low frets. They sell a little piece of metal called a fret rocker to do this with. You can do it with a license, a credit card. I'm just simultaneously praying that there aren't any high or low frets, especially low frets, because for some reason these guitars made in the 70s and 80s often have tiny, super short, nearly worthless fret wire that I refer to as a fretless wonder. So if I do in fact have to level and polish these frets, I'll probably end up with next to no frets, therefore it will need a re-fretting, and I really don't wish to do that right now. And for the high end of the fretboard, where the frets are much closer together, I use this shorter block of wood. You ideally want to check these frets 3 at a time. Here's an exaggerated example of how it would act if there were a high or low fret. As you can see, it would either rock or it would have air showing under it. Luckily, only work that these frets really need is just take Scotch-Brite, rub them all down real good, get all that old tarnish off of there, and shine them up a little bit so I can see if there are any real problems. Depending on what device you're viewing this on or how eagle-eyed you are, you may see the slightest divots are really more like witness marks from the strings on the frets, especially when a shadow is casted over them. This actually looks worse on video than it does in real life, but either way, I can't feel them with my finger now. And this is how you check the crank in a 9,000 RPM race engine, so I think it'll be just fine for a guitar. So I'll just polish these things up using a eraser on a plain number 2 pencil. If you would like to see a full from scratch brand new neck being fret leveled and polished to a mirror shine, there will be a little card pop up in the corner if my memory serves correct. And now for a recreation of the shot from Star Wars where Luke enters the Death Star. I figured now was as good as time as any. Take out a square and measure the gap on the edge of this neck pocket so we can make a good tight shim. If I remember correctly, it was just a touch under 3/4 of an inch and 3 inches long. Well, these shims could be made from something as simple as popsicle sticks, but at the risk of not looking like a complete hack, I believe I'll use this maple veneer to complete the job. You may ask where I got such a thing. Somebody was throwing away an old 70-year-old Art Deco dresser. I took it back to my house, threw it down in the yard, sprayed it up real good, till the veneer let loose, ripped it off, tore the thing apart, stacked it up as wood, because it looked like guitars to me. So obviously I'm measuring and marking the piece of veneer. I cut it out with a set of big industrial scissors. It tried to split, but that doesn't much matter, no one will see that. And the structure we need is thickness-wise, not lengthwise or widthwise. Speaking of thickness, I used a sanding block to kind of knock the rough edges off of this thing and then start to get it down to the correct thickness. The way I got a precise type fit was a combination of eyeballing and a good old guesstimation. After my gut said it was the appropriate thickness, it took me some Titebond 2, rubbed on the one side, proceeded to insert the shim in the crack, and then I started knocking her home with Maxwell's rusty hammer. Next, I used a flathead screwdriver and the hammer to peck it down into the bottom of the neck pocket good and solid, and to also kind of get it to swell a little bit along the top there and make a good tight seal. Finally, I just took a razor utility knife and pared away at it, going with the grain like you'd do with a wood chisel, and she's in there completely level, secure, and tighter than Dick's hat band. So structurally and function-wise, this shim worked out perfectly. What the problem is, it is more noticeable than that crack. So let's do something about that. Let's pretend that that didn't just happen. Now let's do something about that. What I'm doing here is attempting to paint match this guitar.
Well, not really beige, kind of an off-white. Kind of like, you know, an eggshell color.
This is a crazy weird color. I ended up putting too much green in at first. I had to end up moving down just a little bit because it does need some green in it, but one microscopic speck was too much.
I'm afraid you're wrong there, Major. It's not quite an eggshell. It don't have that much yellow in it.
After some doing, I got a close enough color that I was pretty happy with. But after I got it on there, you can see it's just a tad too vibrant.
It's more like, sort of like that, only not quite that bold.
After I wipe off the excess, pretty damn close. Once I got a color and I was happy with,
You ever seen winter butter?
and I felt it was adequately painted, I got a dab of black and I put it in there in between the neck and the pick guard. Wipe off the excess, pretty sweet. Now of course this needs to be shiny to truly match, and it needs to be sealed some way. But I don't want to endanger the paint, so I just take some Mod Podge, take a little paintbrush, paint it on there. That will cure shiny and water resistant. And now this thing's not invisible, but it's a hell of a lot better off with a shim in there in terms of stability, and it's not as noticeable as it was as a plain piece of wood. And it's one of those things that if you know it's there, you're going to keep looking at it, you're going to notice it. If you don't know it's there, you're not going to notice it. Your eye will tell you it's a shadow. Finally, it's time to put on some strings. I got some D'Addario EXL 120s. PD2 Finger had made a video, I don't know, 4 or 6 months ago. Let me know that there are actually counterfeit D'Addarios out there. So if you're unsure, you need to check this code. Any of you, pause this right now, steal this code. Get yourself 200 free player circle points. That's a first come, first served basis there. Not too much to say here. I am threading them through there. It's not the easiest bridge to thread through. Here's a close-up. You take the string, you bend it, you hold it up the right way, and it'll shoot right through there and come through the middle of the saddle. Double check the color codes before I tune anything up. And now I'm going to show something that I'm going to guess is going to be unpopular. But I think this is another reason why everybody else is always upgrading tuners and I never seem to need to. When I wind on a string, I tighten it up and I stick 3 fingers in between the middle of the fretboard and the string. Then I tightly crease the string over and I tune it up and make sure that the loose end that's coming out of that hole in the tuner goes above the wrap. On your big strings, this is going to give you about like half a wrap to 1 wrap. On the smaller strings, you'll get more. So this is wrong, right? Doesn't this slip? No, not at all. It's completely locked down like a locking tuner. 3 or 4 wraps on there is what bunches up and slips. All these saddles were so out of whack, I ended up having to actually adjust some of them as I was going just to get a string on it. And with the way I showed that I put on strings earlier, I usually don't need a string winder until like the last 2 strings. The ones up high are skinnier, they're stretchier, they get a few extra wraps. One held 3 inches off the fretboard, and this helps because they're slick, so they probably would slip. And now I can start adjusting the string heights. I've seen some people online use a actual set of digital calipers to set the string height. I used to use the cardboard pack of strings as a guide. Nowadays I just kind of look and feel the guitar. With tiny little frets like this, short ones, I'm going to go a little bit higher so that your finger can kind of squish around the string and grip it for bending. If you have big tall jumbo frets, you can go lower and there's still that area to get your string kind of squished into your finger for traction. Also checking for buzz. It's not really a problem here, as I've seen all the frets are pretty much level on this guitar. I could go super low, but unless you're playing like math rock, doesn't really give you the relief you need for bends. It's a feel thing, and I'll not get into that whole debate on you play like a robot versus people who talk about feel always play only in E minor pentatonic scale. Maybe from Muddy Waters to Roger Waters, E minor pentatonic just kind of sounds like human feelings. But I do digress. Well, now to adjust pickup heights. I am doing this with the guitar plugged into my bench amp. That neck pickup is a Strat copy coil that is overwound and loud bassy ceramic, so I'm decking it down, getting it away from the strings so it can make some stratty and jazzy sounds. And that Tele bridge pickup needs to become way up so it can do that stabbing you in the ear holes twang. And what I'm really shooting for is that even though one's bassy and one's trebly, I want the perceived volume to be pretty equal, and I would like for the guitar to have a really great balanced sound in the middle position. Now I've slacked the strings way down, and we're going to address this nut and get rid of any lingering tuning issues that we may have. I'm taking this set of torch tip cleaning files and I'm selecting one size bigger than the string that I'm filing for, and I'm going in at an angle toward the headstock and really only working on the side of the nut that is toward the top of the headstock. You don't want to mess with that little knife edge toward the fretboard where the string actually sits. Well, at least in this case I don't, because all the string heights seem to be perfect. What I'm doing is opening that channel for the string to go through to prevent any kind of binding. You know, like when you tune the guitar up and it tick tick ticks like that. Or say you tune down and the string doesn't decrease in tone until it goes tick and then gets lower all at once. This will fix that. But once again, I'm only widening this channel in general, and I'm not deepening it toward the fretboard, only toward the headstock. Now you see, there's nothing on here. It's naked, no nut juice, whatever you want to call it, but smooth as silk. Now all that's left to do, set the intonation. Some people make this seem overly complicated. It's real simple. Tune each string to pitch using a decent tuner, fret the 12th fret, pluck it again, and you should get the exact same note 1 octave higher. On most tuners, this will show us exactly the same thing as the open string. Unless you're just particularly lucky, you're going to find that at the 12th fret it's either flat or sharp, or low or high. If the note is too low or too flat at the 12th fret, then the saddle needs to be adjusted toward the neck to shorten the string. If the note is too sharp or too high, then the saddle needs to be moved toward the bottom of the guitar or toward the bridge. After every adjustment, you'll have to tune the string back to pitch, because the pitch changes as the saddle moves either back or forward. This sounds tedious and complicated, but it's really not. Usually it doesn't take any more than like maybe 20 minutes. Unless you run into a special problem like this. This guitar will not properly intonate because I've pulled the saddle as far back as the current hardware and configuration will allow, and the 12th fret is still too sharp. This string is still too short, and I suspect I understand the problem.
Well, that ain't nothing to be ashamed of. We're all scared. You, sir? You're scared? Every time I go up against a beige foot. Beige foot?
This here is a parts caster problem. It appears that what we have here is a 24 3/4 inch scale body, otherwise known as a Gibson scale body, with a 25 1/2 inch scale neck or a Fender neck on a Gibson body. Not that either of these are actually Gibson or Fender products, but they were designed and built in those two unique dimensions, which are incompatible. The only true proper way to fix this would be to remove this bridge, re-drill it, and place it further toward the bottom of the guitar. But this is not my guitar, I'm not gonna do that. But I know what I can do. Let's do an experiment. Well, time to grab a couple of cans of spare parts, 'cause this one's gonna be a fucking bitch. This next part was kind of long and convoluted, so I'm going to try to speed run this shit. Hopefully it can be helpful to someone who has the same problems. I ripped the adjustment screw out of the saddle. I grabbed one out of the parts can that's shorter. I put it in, I tried, it's still too damn long. So I tear it back out. And just as an experiment, I stick a hex nut on it to hold it back. And I adjust it as far back it's almost dead against the bridge plate. Lo and behold, perfect. Intonation at the 12th fret. Go ahead and rip the screw out of the saddle of the A string. Replace it with a shorter one. But this time I go ahead and stack up 3 washers on the back side of the bridge to give me that extra 1/4 inch of adjustment. Crank it back to where my heart says it needs to go. I check it, nailed it. And this is when I realized that unless I want to cut off the screws with a side grinder and screw, no pun intended, the next guy that has to intonate this guitar, I'm gonna have to take this bag of parts, select 3 washers and a shorter screw for probably every single saddle on the bridge. So I now do that for the first saddle, retune and re-intonate the E string. Now to the D string, I just go ahead right off the bat, take it apart, put my shorter screw in there with the 3 washers, get her all adjusted and she's good to go. At this point, just for shits and giggles, I test the next 3 strings. Usually they don't have to be so far back. Looks like I'm gonna be grabbing the screws and the washers again. Got the G string assembled and intonated. Same with the B, flawless. Had a oopsie. Well, when I took that one out, the fucking spring flew to Kingdom Come, but luckily I keep these little springs and those are the same ones that are in battery compartments. I don't know if this one came from a battery compartment or a guitar. Don't make no difference. They're the same. Accidentally intonated the high E string by sheer luck. Well, really, it was an educated guess, but I acted like a badass about it. Generally, this is exactly the shape you're gonna have. A little ramp and then another little ramp. It's kind of, once you've seen it a bunch of times, done a bunch of these, they're pretty much a ramp and then a ramp. Not always, but you know. And we have now completed the repair and setup of this guitar. Clip these string ends off here and she's ready to play. Real quick before I do a demo and show you what a twang weapon this thing really is, I want to address a few things. These are for the asshole that already has or probably is planning to go down in the comments section and say, putting 3 washers on every one of those screws is stupid and janky and shitty. I cannot believe you've done that to a customer's guitar. Or how about this? Your little paint job deal you did on that Shim was real cool or whatever, but what the fuck? Totally unprofessional. So the washers. This was a form over function thing. This allowed a non-playable guitar to be completely perfectly intonated. This also added quite a bit of weight to the bridge, so that's supposed to be a good thing, right? I could have done this with solid brass standoffs and called it a new sustain product. Now about the little piddly paint stuff. This is just care and attention to detail. It really needed a shim. Shims are often ugly. Oh, how about this? You use super glue to attach a magnet to a pickup. The magnet that was on there was already super glued. Quite well. But what the hell is my point, right? Okay, in the area I live in, which is in between Muscle Shoals and Nashville, guitar techs are everywhere like leaves growing on trees. But they're used to working on very expensive guitars belonging to studio musicians, famous people, or at least club bands. If you bring a thrown together, problematic parts caster like this in there, they'd probably turn you around at the door, and if you could talk them into taking it, they're gonna treat it like a piece of shit. They're not gonna take the time to modify a pickup, they're gonna convince you it needs to be changed. All the trouble I went through on this bridge, never gonna happen. Paint a shim? Hell no. Massage the nut like this? Nah, you get new tuners. And that'll be $350, ma'am. Do you understand? What I did here was a conscious effort to not do anything unreversible to a family heirloom that a woman's grandfather put together with his hands. And regardless of what you think of the quality of my work or not, Since it's so close to Christmas, I'm not going to charge a dime for this. I'm going to hand this to that woman and say Merry Christmas. And either way, you're about to see that this motherfucker is badass. And for this demo, we're going to come out of the guitar with a Tartarian plaid pig hog cable. Best guitar cables in the world. They don't pay me to say that. They just give me free shit when I do. First thing in the chain is NOS Germanium Dirty Boost we built in a previous video, card in the corner if I remember. Going into a Univibe, then into a clone set for distortion, and finally a top secret pedal that you can't see that I was sent to do a demo on 4 months ago, so that will happen soon. Either way, it's nice and lush and you're gonna hear it. Then finally into a big ass stage ride tube British voice amp with a Celestion 7080 12-inch in it. One more thing real quick. Yes, I am aware now that my D string was just a little flat. Was I aware at the time? No. Maybe the people up the road at the intersection were aware, but I was not. I got a 40 watt Celestion 12 6 inches away from me and the amp turned up to 6. It sounds close mic'd. The mic is on a boom in the opposite corner of the room, 6 inches from the ceiling. It was loud in all capitals and italics. I'm gonna go ahead and play the entire jam uncut. This is actually only the second time I've played an electric guitar in 3 months. So I was rusty, but some moments along the way were quite magical. Let's get it on! It's a Tilly. Let's do Tilly shit. I'm rusty. Gotta throw away the pick and tear up my fingers. Fine, son. I need that pick back. Really fine. I don't know how this is coming across on video, but in here, that neodymium and ceramic pickup is fucking painful. My old lady's on the couch, plugging her ears up. Woo! Okay, fuck, I can't have that no more. We're done. It's fixed. It's good. Strings need to stretch out so they'll stay in tune better, but I believe in it. Well, guys, that just about does it for this video. If you watched this all the way to the end, thank you so much for your time. I'm back from a break. The upload should be coming through at a pretty steady click from now to at least throughout spring. If you found this educational or entertaining in any way, please like and maybe subscribe! I am Clementine. You have been watching Heavy Metal ATC. Till next time!